whispers and rumors that don't get reported. Stories I write that are often distorted. Got my notebook and pen, and I'm ready to listen. Tell me the truth, I'll consider your position. I've seen killers with eyes so cold and dead, and others go to prison because of what someone said, rotting away for the rest of their lives, leaving a hole here on the outside. Things are sad here on earth, and it's no wonder why, when you consider the sociopaths who remain in charge. It's me who sees the system for all its flaws, and I usually start with the probable cause. My right hand is reading the probable cause. Welcome to The Probable Cause. This is a podcast covering the criminal justice system in Allen County, Indiana, northeastern Indiana, and the state of Indiana. I'm Jamie Duffy, your host and a local journalist. To my left over there is Michael McAlexander, our co-host. He is the Allen County Prosecutor. Most of you are aware of a third person on this podcast. I call her my right hand. She's been my friend, a proofreader, advocate, and very unfortunately, the mother of a homicide victim. One of the reasons she is so well versed in the legal system. Now, as you can see today, we have a special guest. He is Sheriff Troy Hershberger of Allen County. He's got a lot of things on his mind right now, and we're going to be tackling that together. But for right now, we need to talk to about the courts. So, Mike, take us away on the courts, please.
Well, we've got two trials going this week. One's the murder case, I think Raymond Washington. That's actually on a recess today. They picked a jury yesterday, but Judge Gull was unavailable today, so they'll get going tomorrow. We've also got another case going that's burglary, robbery type of case, and that may actually go to the jury this afternoon.
Oh, I think it's going to, because I was there. I will have some tape that I will post up on the Probable Cause Facebook page. It wasn't exactly closings, but it was the defendant got on the trial himself, Derek Baker, and so I think that you will all be interested in that. I want to say that last week we had a very emotional trial. Jamard Lewis, 32, was found guilty. I don't think it was any surprise of the senseless killing of Perla Nieto, who was a woman who gave so much to this community. I wish I was able to cover that case. I liked seeing my Wayne colleague, Marcus Truccio, in front of the camera. I thought he did an excellent job. I will say that if I had covered this case, I would have covered the aspect of mental health. I looked through his online court records. It was competency hearing after competency hearing, whether it was canceled or whether it took place. And then I talked to his attorney, Robert Scrumman, and I said, tell me about this guy, because I had a hunch that there was a big backstory. He said he can't really talk about it until the sentencing, which is, I believe, September 23rd, but he hinted that a lot will come out. Another thing I asked him was, did he have family there? Because sometimes you go to these trials, there's no family. And that's another indication of the paucity of support that some of these people get when they're in these situations. But he said there were a lot of family and friends there. So this was somebody who was treasured by his own family. And I'll just wait and hold off until I find out. He's going to be sentenced to September 23rd, and if Robert Scrumman speaks loudly and clearly and not too quickly, we might learn about Lewis's past, the mitigating and the aggravating factors before Judge Gull sentences him. I think we should also say congratulations to former magistrate, Circuit Court Magistrate Brent Eckenbarger, who has been appointed to replace juvenile judge Andrea Trevino. Just got a message that he will be sworn in on September 26th. We had a great conversation that was posted on the Probable Cause Facebook page and on Instagram, so if you want to check that out, you can. So now, on to the state of incarceration here in Allen County and the Allen County Jail. I do want to point out first that the sheriff is not responsible for putting people in jail. I mean, some of his sheriff's deputies do, but for the most part, he is not responsible for putting them in jail. He needs to manage the jail, and that became harder and harder. So we are getting a new Allen County jail, which I think is a great idea. So tell me, where are we in the construction of that jail?
The new site is moving along just on schedule. It's coming along well. They're putting cells in Pod A. Should be finished with that probably by the end of the week, and then go into Pod B. So,
Well, wait a minute. How many pods are we getting?
there'll be 5 pods.
Okay.
And the construction of walls, concrete is done, roof. The goal is then to get the individual cells, which are pre-made in the state of Georgia and brought here, to get all the cells in before the dead of winter. So the goal is by mid-December to have all those cells in so they can shore up the building and begin the interior work.
Well, I was just wondering too, I had a question, but I can't remember what it was. I want a tour of this place, you know. I've been begging and begging to go out there because I want to see that the utilities are on the outside of the pod.
They're not on the outside of the pod. They're actually inside the pod. They're on the outside of the housing unit itself. So they'll be in behind the cells.
Right, so there's no more clogging up the toilets, no more clogging up the sinks, no more sending threats through the bowl.
Well, in theory, no. I'm not going to say never, but
They always find a way.
they'll find a way to try to figure it out. But at least initially, the answer is probably no. But you know, if there's a will, there's a way. When you're locked up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you become creative, and you know, sometimes they come up with genius ways to do things.
Yeah.
And you know, most of us can't think that way because we haven't spent time locked up like that. But in the end of the day, what I would like to see is share some of that creativity that they're able to do on the inside of a cell block. They could put to good use on the outside for good, not only for themselves, but community too. So.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, in each of these pods, are there going to be these classes that they need to take? Are they going to have, and what I really get excited about is that there's going to be outdoor, the possibility of going outdoors every once in a while.
Well, you know, we have that now, and it's done 4 days a week. It's offered to all blocks in housing units in the current jail. The difference is we have to parade the prisoner all the way around the jail to take to one place to do that. We can't force people to do it, so that isn't efficient for our staff. So I have to pay somebody on overtime to take, say, if we have 30 in this housing unit, 14 want to go, 2 people have to take 14 people out while 1 person stays behind with
When
the
you
other
say
16.
take people out, are you talking to that area that has a cage on the top?
Yes,
That's not outdoor to me.
it's outdoors.
Yeah, I know. I have a picture of that. I'm not sure I can use it anymore, but to me, that is not outdoor. I mean, I don't think you could see any trees from that.
No, you can see the sky. And it is open air.
Yeah, it's open air, right? Anyway, they'll be able to get to the outside, I think, with the new jail.
They won't be able to get to the outside. The recreation area will be a section within each pod housing unit where the prisoner's right there. It's more efficient for our staff members where the same staff member that's watching can take them over to that section of the housing unit, and we'll open a door that will have mesh then as well. It makes it more efficient so they can observe and fresh air.
Will they feel like they're outdoors?
I'm sorry, what was your question? Right here?
They can't go outside. They can just look outside.
They'll have access to fresh air. They will not be wandering around a meadow, so to speak, like you and I can. Keep in mind, these people are incarcerated and in jail for a reason.
Yeah, I get it.
Right.
So, but the efficient thing is those areas will be in each housing pod, so I don't have to pay staff members to take the prisoner out. Everything in this new modern structure that's being built caters to the housing unit. So Jamie, you said a thing about programming, and
Right.
The idea is that same room, when it is buttoned up, can be a classroom as well. So through chaplain services, and I don't know everything what it will look like, but I've been in talks with Kim Churchward with Community Corrections as to maybe how we start to begin to morph programming, so to speak, with her program. Because right now, everybody that she gets the people that go there are part of a plea agreement or part of their sentence or whatever the court decides.
They've been convicted.
Correct.
They've been convicted of something.
They have been convicted, and when you go to community corrections, it's okay, if you want out of jail, do this program, and sometimes they don't buy into that. So, and that circles back to why we see sometimes the amount of probation violators we have in the jail. So
I think we should explain this a little bit, because when you, say you get convicted and you're in community corrections. Actually, this trial that's going on this week is exactly that. He got a trip to the hospital, he cut off his electronic monitoring, and then he fled or whatever, and he committed more crimes. So he obviously violated his probation, so he winds back in your jail.
Right.
Did I say that correctly?
correct, and I would assume if he cut off his anklet, he would have had an active escape charge then. That would be the new offense. So to sum it up, and Mike can speak way better on the community corrections side of things than I can, but to sum it up, when you're released from jail and you enter into that plea agreement or the final dispensation from the courts, that you're doing something because you have to do that. You're not really electing to go to community corrections and buying into the program that you may have. You're doing it so you get out of jail. And I'm not saying in all cases that is true, but in some cases people are offered community corrections in lieu of staying in jail, so they want to go to community corrections. And what happens is they're not really buying into the programming, and as a result, if they show up, maybe they choose not to show up to even begin with, or once they're there, they don't want to follow the rules, or they just flat out disappear. In this case, you're talking about cutting an anklet off, and they go on the lam, and warrants are issued, and that's where I've said time and time again where it doesn't become too efficient for the sheriff's office, because constitutionally, we have to manage all the warrants that are active as well as have the staff to go.
So are you saying that if you're morphing with, that Kim Churchward is the executive director of the Allen County Community Corrections, and it's very highly regarded in the state according to a study that was put out. So in other words, we're talking with her about co-programming, maybe?
Not necessarily, because I don't do programming with my staff. Her staff does. That's their expertise. We have an opportunity with this new jail, and if you've heard Ron Turpin talk or have that opportunity, Ron Turpin talking about the Criminal Justice Center, we have this opportunity where we can morph some services, and I'm certainly at scratching the surface with this, and merely saying that if we do a good job of classifying who belongs to community corrections and maybe who isn't a good risk yet, that we can utilize some of that space in the new jail, that we can bring the programming to them and let them show us that they're ready to proceed out and get outside the doors and buy into it. Sometimes I think the criminal justice system, you'll hear the term, and it's kind of an old term, of assembly line justice, that if you do this charge, you get this outcome, right? Mm-hmm. And it works for most who have support, but we had some talk before this started that some of these folks, and a lot of these folks who end up in jail and continually come in and out of jail, throw mental illness into it as well as addiction, they don't have that support structure. They don't have a driver's license. They don't have a job, and on down this laundry list. But they may end up into a program that's going to cost some money, and then we're asking them to drive and show up on time, and really things that the average citizen takes for granted that we're able to do every day, some of these folks can't and don't understand and aren't willing or unable. So that's where the system becomes inefficient, at least from my vantage point, when you start looking at these probation violations, because what does that mean? What do we have today? 194, and that doesn't necessarily mean I have 194 people in there on probation violations, because usually one person can have more than one. So they could have several going on.
But how many, if you had to estimate, how many?
We'd have to do a capture of the population today, and Mike chuckles because we have done that a couple of times. It'd be a guess, from my vantage point. But it wouldn't be 196 people, but it could certainly be in the neighborhood of 75 to 100 people.
Right.
Would you say that would be fair? And,
Multiple, held on multiple
right.
reasons.
And this is not saying that community
Well, and I
corrections.
think we should say right now is that we have, you consider 758 as the number of people in the jail. If you count
Right.
lockup, it's 800. So when you talk about 758 and you're talking about 75, that's a tenth right there.
Pretty close,
Probation
yeah.
violators, all right? And then we could go on and on. So, okay, go ahead.
Well, that's not to say that community corrections isn't doing their job, because they do. They have success stories that we can talk about, people who went through the program and never come back to the criminal justice system. But we need to pay attention to the population that reoffends time and time again, and how are we going to deal with this? Because a lot of them, I would suspect, have some form of mental illness along with addiction, lump it all together, going on in their lives. And it's difficult for them to navigate the mental health system, let alone the criminal justice system. And that's where I say, from at least my role and with the prosecutor and everybody else that's part of this criminal justice system, we need to have a better look and have some legitimate discussion as to what's the best process for some of these people moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of what that's going to be, because I know they're trying to think creatively. What can we do to these people? There are some people in this that are kind of a hopeless population. I hate to put it that way, but there's just no turning back. They would prefer to be homeless. They would prefer to be on drugs. They can't help themselves, and then you get them in your jail.
That is true. That is true. But Restore Allen and the vision that Commissioner Turpin had and got, our buy-in from the criminal justice system to at least begin to explore what those options are. And I don't necessarily have the answer. I don't know if Mike has the answer. I have some ideas and some thoughts of where we can start and begin. But
Well,
you're
what would
absolutely
those
right.
be? How about mental health? Let's just start
Well,
there.
I think what we get into here is the jail is frequently the last chance. When you can't be handled elsewhere. I used to say this about people with our Adult Protective Services program. We can admit them to a hospital, we can commit them to a mental hospital, and we can arrest them. Otherwise, there's really no way to hold people that are either self-destructive or addicted. And
And the
so they
second thing
end up
that you
in
just
jail.
mentioned, the committing them to a mental hospital, I hear time and time again that they don't hold these people.
There's usually a pretty quick turnaround,
Yeah.
unless there's been a really involved formal proceeding. But a lot of the commitments are for a fairly short period of time.
I've had 2 horror stories told to me this week of people who go in for 2 days, walk out with meds. The family's supposed to monitor that, and they're just time bombs ready to go off.
Well, and those are the ones when they've blown all their chances with their family, their friends, they steal from them, especially with addiction or mental health issues. If they reach that crisis point, the families burn out.
Yeah, well, they're at wit's end. I mean, how when you
So where do they end up? In the jail.
right?
And this is where I think we probably need to do a better job of screening people on the front end and maintaining a better history of those persons. I know that's something that Kim Churchward has talked about, of from the first time they act with the system, that we get a cumulative rolling idea of what programs have they been in.
And you don't
What is
have
their
that right
history?
now?
We have a history of their criminal involvement, but I don't think we have anything that goes in. Okay, when you were on probation in 2012 for 2 years, what programs did you do then? And are we repeating them? Do we need to repeat them?
Or what medications were you
What
taking?
medications you were on?
Your people find that out for sentencing.
They find out the criminal history, of when they were convicted, but I don't think anybody's got a database without really diving into the records of probation, community corrections.
And that data is being mined already. It's too bad there isn't a database set up already.
Well, is there something like unconstitutional about that, keeping a database?
I think there would be some people that would be very concerned about privacy interests on that. I mean, we run into this with the red flag laws, where, and those are folks that have either shown to be a danger to themselves or others, and have guns, that we can seize the guns, hold on to them, and they're entitled to a hearing on that, and they're entitled to come back in later years for rehearings. But there is a lot of controversy about mental health issues in particular on those kinds of cases, that are we prejudging them? And once you've been marked that way, are you, should you be able to get a handgun or other things? So there are some issues, and sadly there's the history of people being put into mental institutions that maybe didn't need to. There's the famous
That's
movie,
way back when.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest type of thing. But the reality is there are a lot of people that, I mean, this gets into our homeless population. There are some of these people that when we had the State Developmental Center, it was filled with a lot of people that had some severe mental illness.
And what happened to the State Developmental Center?
It was closed.
Right, and that was so helpful.
But, and that's why there's so much that goes back in just to the jail.
Right.
Because we don't have anywhere. I mean, this kind of started with, do we have the answer? Yeah. We need a lockdown facility that handles addiction and mental health.
Well, isn't that supposed to be available at the jail? Didn't we talk and talk? I remember covering all those commissioner meetings and people swearing, yes, we're going to have 50 beds for medical and mental health.
The jail is not a mental health facility, nor is it a hospital.
Yeah, I know that.
In the current structure we have now, we do not have a housing unit dedicated just for the mentally ill or any kind of medical issue. And that's where the current structure, when I talk about being inefficient, that is what I'm talking about. We have people in this cell or that cell or this cell or this housing area. They're kind of all over the building. So our nursing staff has to go here and there. And for example, just to pass medications can take up to 2 hours, only to spin back around. We pass medications 4 times a day.
It says here medical segregation, 7 people.
Well, those are just 7 people. There's other people though that have medical problems.
Do these people get their own
They're by
cell block?
themselves.
They're by themselves.
Yes.
And like a padded cell?
In some cases, yes, but padded cells in new structures aren't even utilized anymore. What we'll have in this new building are a medical area, and what that means is we'll have so many beds, and off the top of my head, it's at 44 beds. I may be off here or there, but
That's a good number.
there'll be 44 beds for medical people, and the idea is we have those acute medical needs met where they're all in one spot, makes it more efficient for the medical department, where the cells are right there in with the medical department, and our staff would have eyes on them. So it's to cut down on this coming and going and keeping things stationary so the staff can monitor them better. That's the idea, and then you step it down. So as you get them regulated and watch them for X amount of time, whatever medically is necessary, and then get them out to a general population block.
That sounds much
rather
better.
than mixing some of these folks in with general population areas.
Right. So I think I was going to go to JRAC, but you want to go to the population first and then JRAC?
Well, we can talk about population while we're talking about the jail. You alluded to it that I don't control who stays and goes. The judicial system dictates that.
Right.
Law enforcement does begin the criminal justice system when they do make an arrest and they bring them to our facility, and that you'll hear us talk about the word lockup or intake. That's the temporary area, holding area. You're there for up to 3 days. Most people get arrested, come in, come out, and it's a very fluid situation. So we have 42 there today. It's that number 758 that we talked about that's in the long-term housing or the jail side. And to put that into perspective, we have 731 permanent beds. The federal government sees you're at capacity at 85%, which is that 685 number roughly.
585.
I'm sorry, excuse me, 585, sorry.
I used to write that number so often.
Right, but
585 versus
731 beds, and we're at 758 today.
Right, so you're 200 over.
Roughly 200 over, and that becomes an alarming number to me, because then you're talking about the boats, and the boats are those temporary platforms that they put their mattresses on. We call them boat, or the prisoner calls them boats, because they flip them over and put their mattress on the inside, and they're not elevated off the floor. But in any event, I don't control who stays, who goes once they're getting to long-term housing. And there's a lot of factors that come into play. That probation violator number comes into play, because those are the people, when you're brought to jail, you're at the end of the rope, so to speak, on your charging, and there's nowhere else to go.
Right.
So once you're in on jail on a probation violation, then that becomes what we call dead time. You're not getting jail credit for sitting in jail during a probation violation, generally speaking. The judge can grant it, but it has to be a file by the defendant to request that, and may or may not happen. But the other side of the coin is the number of people that I've sentenced to the Department of Corrections, and that number today is 96. So if you take that number alone, I have 96 people that are sentenced to the Department of Corrections and should be in prison. And some people think, well, that's easy, just take them to prison. Well, I'm at the mercy of the Indiana Department of Corrections of how many people that they will accept in prison on a weekly basis. For 92 counties in the state of Indiana, and that number is 100 beds. And
we are allowed up to 14 in
That's right. We get 14%. Marion County gets 40, and Vandenberg's 12. So 66% of the beds are consumed by 3 counties. So if the judicial system, the prosecutor, and they're working through the different sentencings that happen on a weekly basis, there may be more getting sentenced than we're shipping out.
Yeah.
And to put that into perspective, by the end of June, 1st of July, we had that number down in the 30s, and our jail numbers were even below. They were in the 600s.
Okay, so do you want to say why? Because why were they in the 30s was because Indiana Department of Correction was taking how many?
Well, the same. It's 100 beds a week. And we get creative. I've worked with other sheriffs, or if there's people who are counties that
aren't sending as much.
Cancel their trip that week.
Right.
The Department of Corrections helps us out. We got a pretty good working relationship where they help us out. They give us those beds. Other sheriffs will give up some of their beds.
So what's the most you ever sent down in 1 week?
We took as many as, with a women's trip, about 30.
And I think the most we've had was like 162 or something.
When was that?
Back in early 23, I think.
Yeah, well, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah. Wow. The point is you got it down to 30. Now all of a sudden it's up to, well, it was 106 yesterday, or wait a minute, 2 days ago. And today you said it was 92 because 14 people got shipped down to the Reception Diagnostic Center, RDC.
I think it went down to 96 today because we add each day usually.
There's a sentencing.
Yeah.
And, well, not always to, the Department of Correction, but.
And just to be clear on that, those are people that have completed all of their court hearings in the local neighborhood. They have now been sentenced to the Department of Corrections.
Right.
And it's hard not to look at it as a financial component. If you saw recently that the state offered up the beds at Maumee Correctional Facility.
We're going to get to that for sure, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, the feds are going to pay the state $85 per person per day. The sheriff receives $42 a day from the Department of Corrections for people, I think, isn't it after 5 days?
Correct, after 5 days.
So for the first 5 days, the county picks up.
That is correct.
Okay.
And it went to $42 beginning July the 1st of this year. Prior to that, it was at $37 for quite a long time. So as you can see, if the Department of Corrections has 1,000 open beds out there and they're offering them to the federal government to get $85 a day, what incentive is there to take these prisoners from the county jails? So it becomes frustrating on a local level that the state's responsibility is to run the state prison system. So
it just so happens that I asked the department spokeswoman about that, and I got this answer. Because I said, how is it that you have 1,200 beds available, it's 1,200, for the federal government, but it's the prisons themselves are at 95% capacity. You're only supposed to be at 85%. There's one prison that's literally at 100% capacity. I'm trying to think of which one, because we know we have more than a dozen, I believe. So she said those beds at Miami have not been filled. Okay, they haven't been filled. I think we can say that. The report reflects the beds that at the facility that can be filled. So we have approximately 1,200 beds that are not being filled. Those unfilled beds are the ones that we would use for ICE, and she doesn't know a timeline. I'm like, she didn't really answer my question.
Well, the other thing, there was a major revision.
But she was nice about it.
Okay, to Indiana's criminal code back in 2014. And a lot of sentences were changed and the levels of the different crimes. We replaced something that hadn't been done since 1977.
Yeah.
But at that time, the DOC population was in the high 20,000s, or I don't know if it hit 30,000 or not. I don't believe we've closed very many facilities, if any. So they used to have that capacity. I think their total capacity now is like 23, I think their current population is like 23.
I do think they closed some, and of course they are building a new one at Westville. It shouldn't have, well, they're not going to call it Westville, but it's at Westville. It'll be 4,200 beds. But it's
what they've told us is they can't process. They don't have the staff to process incoming people.
That's what they told you? Yeah, okay, so I told you guys even before we went on that one of the things that concerned me was this report that I got. You can get it online. Anybody can go online, Indiana Department of Correction. It says there are 1,600 vacancies for the human resource report for people who are working at all these facilities. I could sit here and count them up. They have about 5,700 total staff, but they need another 1,600. That's a lot of people. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of people that they aren't hiring.
It's hard to look at this without thinking that the state is trying to save money on the backs of the local counties.
Well, I don't know. And then another one I have here is that, are you looking up something?
Yeah, I was trying to find a number, but I can't find it quickly.
Okay, so in July 2023, the total facility population for adult, men, women, juveniles, both genders, was 22,000. It is now approaching 26,000. So they have 4,000 more people in the prisons in 2 years.
Well, when they redid the criminal code, a lot of crimes were kind of, especially drug crimes, were kind of reduced. The amount to get a major felony of cocaine, to get it to a B felony, which was 6 to 20 years, was 3 grams. And now those numbers to get up to the higher levels are quite a bit different. But one change that they did make that has turned out well from a prosecutor's standpoint is on the more serious crimes. you're doing 75% of your sentence instead of 50% of your sentence. So the long-term people that go in are going to be there for a longer period. It's actually now, say for example, for murder, the actual number of days you spend is, if you get the minimum sentence for murder now, is actually more time than what it was previously if you got the maximum sentence.
45 years?
Because you're doing 75% of it.
When did they add the gun enhancement?
We've had that now, I think, 5-6 years.
Oh, that's
something like
it?
that. Well, there was a different gun enhancement, I believe, but this one is much easier to prove.
I was going to say that can add up to 20 years onto your sentence. So even if you got 45 years, which is practically a virtual life sentence, you used a gun. Why it's a gun rather than a knife? I don't quite understand that logic.
Because a gun is almost guaranteed to be deadly. Well, I guess not almost guaranteed, but much more likely to be deadly than a knife.
Well, if you stab somebody in the stomach, you pretty much killed them. So, but people don't resort to knives as often. Well, the murder trial last week, I believe he used a knife. Yeah, so you can't use the 20 years on him because, and in England, by the way, that's where most of them occur because they can't get the guns. We might think about gun control. That's a whole nother. Well, let's talk about level 6 felonies. How much of a bite is that doing? Because supposedly now level 6 felonies go to prison.
Right, which is why you see that number probably jumping like you did. So, the level 6 felonies, at least here in Allen County, the bulk of those would not see DOC to begin with.
They wouldn't?
No, they'd be going off to a programming, usually community corrections, so on and so forth. So, due to the programming and the community corrections ability, and everything under the auspice of community corrections, level 6 felons will not see DOC on it.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part on that, we're trying to give them services to keep them from coming back in the system. I mean, almost all first offender level 6s will be given probation. Occasionally there may be a short executed sentence or a period on electronic monitoring, but all of that is much more common than sending them to the DOC. Now, if you're on your 10th shoplifting conviction, you're probably going to go to DOC on that. And you will see some longer sentences, people that may be eligible for a habitual offender enhancement, that the maximum sentence for a level 6 is 2.5 years. If they've been held in the jail while their case is pending, they frequently are going to be there for 90 to 180 days, if not even longer, because those cases are really hard to get to trial because we usually try the more serious cases ahead of them. So you just don't see that many going to trial or
Don't
going
a lot
to
of
DOC.
them like take plea agreements anyway?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
And that gets into our whole thing that another thing that goes to the jail population. When you have people charged with very serious crimes, like right now, we have approximately 60 people in the jail awaiting trial on murder cases. Murder cases hardly ever plead. It's partially the sentence is too long, partially people don't want to admit that. Child molesting cases are frequently not in custody, but they also don't plead. The shame, I think, is still there. No one wants to acknowledge they're a child molester. So I don't know the exact number of child molesters we have in the jail, but I'm guessing you add those up together with some of the more serious crimes, people that are looking at drug dealing charges that they could easily get 20 years or more for. That's a lot of time to convince somebody, hey, I got you a great deal. You'll get out when you're 50. To some 22-year-old, they're saying 50.
They should look at the history of.
Well,
Yeah.
it just means that you're going to have some people, the more serious the crime, the more likely they are sitting in the jail. And it's hard to get those all to trial. Most weeks we are sitting here having 4, 5, 6 cases set to go or ready to go, scheduled to go. And we're only trying one for each judge.
If that.
If that.
Right.
So it is really difficult to go in and if you will, clean out the jail.
Well, so it does say here that there's 252 level 6 felonies at the jail.
That would be the number of charges. And that may not be 252 people.
Okay.
Because you can have multiple cases going on. But what that would mean is there's people in the jail, there's 252 level 6 felony charges.
But
a lot of them may be on probation.
Correct.
For a level 6 felony, but they violated the terms of their probation.
well, then why wouldn't they be a probation violator instead of their?
Because the system can't just take one person and give them
Split 'em.
all, and split them in 3 different ways. So that's where sometimes the numbers, to look at raw data and the numbers, you've got to have an understanding as to what it means. Okay, because if you look there, we have way more than 7 murderers in there.
That's right.
But those are 7 people that was their first and only charge.
Drives me crazy.
Well, the rest of them had other things going on, so whatever they got booked in first as is what it typically will go down as. And so if you really look at the level 1 felonies, that number 69, that's where some of those are going to land too.
Oh,
so.
okay. Yeah.
This is where we have done starting in 16 or 17. And I think we did it in 17, 18, 19, 21, and then last year where we picked a day and did that snapshot of really dug into who was in the jail. And back to this issue with the Department of Corrections, in those early ones before 21, I think we were in the single digits for people that were sentenced by us awaiting transport. By the 21, we were up to like 35 on that particular day.
You're talking about 2021?
Yes.
Oh. Only
And
3.
now we've hit this thing where just recently we've been right around 100. A while back, I think our highest was 160 or so. And I think the lowest we've been in the last 4 years is probably, I think we hit 24 once.
So what are you hearing from Indiana Department of Correction? Because I heard there was a bottleneck at RDC where they go to get processed before they get farmed out to the individual prisons. What are they telling you? You must talk to them all the time.
I don't talk to them. They're frustrating me. They owe us they owe the Allen County taxpayer $1.1 million since June of 2024. I have staff at the jail that keeps that relationship going, and we're talking beds, but that's the short-term side of this. The long-term is exactly what Mike has said, that we've watched these numbers of us holding their prisoners and nothing's getting done about it. Collectively, the Indiana Sheriff's Association, this is a topic that we've had. How do we combat this? We've tried to keep open dialogue. That isn't necessarily working. So you can do one of 2 things. You can file litigation and try to drag this through the court system. I suppose the other option is that one day, if I've had enough, take 96 people, put them on a bus and take them down there and say, here you go. I mean,
has anybody ever done that?
well, I mean, that sounds like a big shot thing to say.
Right.
But when you get frustrated and things are out of your control that another part of the government controls, it does become very frustrating, especially when you're seeing the dollar amount that they owe us is over $1 million now. And
I think you should do it.
One of your predecessors was famous for saying he was going
Right.
to take them down and have their paperwork at their feet and handcuff them to a fence.
I say that tongue in cheek. I suppose I could until they just leave them sit outside chained to the fence or something. And something happens where they get hypothermia. Then it becomes my fault and liability.
And you're going to get sued.
But I do say that tongue in cheek, but I will say this, that I'm at the mercy of the Department of Corrections, and when there's 96 people, we're in the overcrowding, you're talking bed space. But in the end of the day, when they only have to totally reimburse us $42 a day now per prisoner, and they're not even.
The feds are going to be paying 85,
and they're not paying their bill anyhow. What incentive is there to do something about their problem? I had a problem with a jail overcrowding lawsuit that I inherited. Well, I've done something about it. I had to change how we did business to make this work. And as of today, out of 172 positions of confinement officers in the jail, I have 163 of them filled. And we constantly...
And that's very, very good.
We constantly...
Hard to recruit.
We constantly recruit. We do it every Wednesday. You'll see a big, huge media blitz to get these numbers in, because my goal is to fill the 172 and go after another 20, because I'm coming down about 2.5 years from now or so when we do move into this new structure. I'm projected, I know I need about 192 workers to go into that. Even though we won't have every pod open, I'll need 192 workers.
Let's just go quickly.
So,
what are the qualifications and what does it pay? Because I know the pay is better than all your local underpaid jobs.
Oh, it's nearly $26 an hour the way it stands today. And, if there's a COLA for next year, you're getting in the neighborhood of $26. High school graduate or military background with GED, we'll take 18-year-old kids. We'll teach them the side of corrections. We will teach them the basics if they want a career in law enforcement or anywhere else in the criminal justice system. We will get them that experience around the offenders of the basics of communication. When you see things go south in some of these videos with police and the public, it's always a breakdown in communication.
And training, I suppose.
And one thing that you will get when you work inside a corrections environment is you will gain that ability to communicate with the population you're going to deal with.
Well, I'm just wondering, when you say $26 an hour, what does that come to an annual salary?
Look, $52,000.
Yep, that's way more than any local underpaid journalist gets. Plus the benefits. Let's talk about the benefits.
You need a job?
I don't think I could wrestle anybody to the ground.
Oh, you don't have to. You just got to be able to communicate.
Well, I can communicate. But I'm just wondering, what are the benefits? I mean, because
the benefits,
most people's jobs don't offer these kind of benefits.
It's the same as any other county employee, paid health insurance, time off, and you get that right away now. It's not like it used to be where you had a period of wait. And
what's the time off? Do you happen to know? I mean,
it's 10 days. 10 paid vacation days, 5 sick days, and then
what do we have, 11 holidays?
11 holidays. It varies from year to year. It's usually 10, sometimes 11 holidays. But in the jail never shuts down, so you're on a 4-by-2 work schedule. So, you may have to work weekends, holidays, but you're paid double time to work the holidays. Shifts, you're paid a shift bonus, whether it's 6% for second shift or 10% to work third shift. So there's incentives, to have to work some of the different hours.
There's another thing I wanted to bring up about the jail. I think that makes it the reason when we say that people are sleeping in boats, that means that there's 3 people or sometimes 4 people to a cell, never 4, 3 people to a cell. He has to keep, at this point, 212 inmates separate. That means away from each other. What kind of a headache does that give the sheriff's
when you're
department?
talking classification, that's a perfect example as to why the federal government says you're overpopulated when you hit that 85% threshold of your beds being covered, because of that classification. We're always fighting for space, whether it be for somebody's own safety or for medical reasons, for example, why we got to keep people separated. And it's a struggle. It's always a struggle no matter what building you're in. But the larger your populated areas are with with cells in that particular block or housing unit, the harder it becomes to segregate. So the new system or the new structure The most you will ever see it in one housing area would be 30 people. We double that in some of our housing units in the
60.
current structure, yes.
That is really packed.
So,
And that just, when you've got a bunch of guys, I'm not talking about girls so much, but a bunch of guys, it's a pressure cooker, let's just face it.
well, it doesn't matter male, female.
Really?
You know, when you put any amount of population, and the more personalities you have, now these are folks that struggle to follow the rules of society, and which is why they're in jail. And the more people you put on one another, as you said, pressure cooker, the more problems you could hypothetically have. So, yeah, that's a perfect example how, you know, the classification can handcuff us in our own workers in how we manage the population.
Well, so, help not handcuffs, you know, they had an unusual approach, and they thought there'd be programs, we wouldn't need jails anymore, anything like that. What can they do, even if they don't know anybody in the jail? Is there anything they could donate, or can they volunteer to do something, or like, you know, I don't know, give somebody around Thanksgiving like $25 on their commissary so they can get a halfway decent meal? I mean, I've heard it's all improved over there. What's the most favorite thing that everybody in the jail loves to eat? Scrambled egg sandwich in the morning?
Well, it depends on, I guess, your palate. But in the end of the day, they get 3 meals a day. And
peanut butter, oh no, sorry, bologna. Okay, go ahead.
But no, when it comes to programming, and I had a train of thought going in that direction when I was talking about probation, specifically with community corrections. You know, you can have all the programming in the world, but if somebody is forced to do it and they're not buying into it, it's probably not going to work for them. This is a population, as I go in and talk to them, you know, they don't trust. They're there for a reason because they can't follow the rules. But the funny thing about it is they all understand if we didn't have rules or laws in society, what would we have? They say chaos or anarchy or both, right? Because there are rules and laws within even the housing units. He who is the biggest, strongest will rule the roost.
Right.
But when it comes to programming, they have to buy into it, and they have to buy into it and understand that we're not trying to, and our goal isn't to change what they think. If they want a red car, they can have the red car. That's their choice. But we want to change how they think and how they tackle the problems that they have in their own life.
You know every single inmate that you have, 758.
No.
But you say you go in and you talk to them.
Yes.
I do believe that Dave Butler, who is the jail commander, and his sidekick, Mark Sycophus, I believe they know everybody.
I don't know that you conceivably get to know everybody, but I will say this. The JCAP program's a capture audience of people that we are doing a program in the jail. The addiction community in this area has been awesome. I don't pay to have this program. Just minor things, but the addiction community is great. The support that they've given this population, we can have as many as 15 people on the program at any one given time. It's a 16-week program. Those people get to see me at least for an hour to 2 hours every week.
That's good.
They get to know me. And as I interact with them, I learn from that population as to what works, what may work, and what doesn't work. And I can tell you this, if you're forced to do something, you're not really giving it the buy-in. Yeah. And, you know, the programming that probation, specifically through community corrections, offers works. It works for those people that buy into it and want to work it. It's just like AA. You know, if you're an alcoholic and you offer AA, why aren't all the alcoholics being cured by AA? Because they don't want to buy into it. And, you know, when's an addict done being an addict? When they decide they're done. And what really clicked in my head is, as you talk to some of these people, talk to our officers who are out on patrol, when you're hitting somebody with Narcan and a drug addict has been brought back 3-4 times, maybe more on Narcan, if near-death experience or dying isn't enough to get you to quit doing drugs, what is?
I know.
Nobody's got a magic wand for this. Nobody has a magic program to fix somebody. An addict is done being an addict when they decide they're ready to change from being an addict and they accept the help to stop using.
And I know that actually you're a very thoughtful sheriff, because we've had so many talks over the past few years, and I know you think about it a lot. And it's something that it's just it can really torture you after a while to say, I wish I could help that person. That's why I said, I mean, would it be something to like put $25 on somebody's commissary? Would that be a kind, thoughtful thing to do?
Oh, it'd be kind. Is it going to fix the problem?
No.
And the answer to that is no.
But it would show that outside people actually give a hoot, you know?
The help that can become from this is when they're in jail, they become that population that they have a lot of time on their hands, right? And I believe this, if you're an addict, you got to get them clean and sober before they can make a conscious decision, right? So as they're incarcerated, if they're incarcerated long enough, and now they begin to understand that they don't need this stuff. They got through the process of the withdrawals or whatever they go through. And again, it's not my area of expertise, but I know this, that if we get that opportunity to get them cleaned up, to begin to make a conscious decision. JCAP is a voluntary program. I offer them nothing. They get no promises from me or the courts. And it's really the same.
But they do get follow-up.
Correct.
And that is like super important. Some of these people have nobody to go to.
I'm going to give you a little insight. It's a lot of the same stuff that community corrections is doing. And some of them have been through it 2 and 3 and 4 times.
Oh, it's very frustrating.
The light bulb goes off in their head. They're like, well, I've had this before, and I didn't really care about it, but now it makes sense. Yeah. So,
well, you know,
it's a lot of factors. This is a population that doesn't trust the system or anybody in the system. So the first words they get out of me is, I don't trust you on day one. Then I trust you, as you trust me. But we're going to work through that. And I make a promise and a commitment that I will be there on Wednesdays, and they will see me on Wednesdays. Now, they didn't see me today because I was busy this morning, but they will see me tomorrow in place of today for an hour, 2 hours. And through my commitment, maybe they can see that commitment is important, and they need to make that commitment to themselves.
I'll say one thing that we didn't touch upon, that every jail, every prison for sure, you hear it over and over again, is that drugs are in there anyway, that they can get a hold of them. You know, I've written up a few of these probable causes. So will the new jail, will you have like a really fancy schmancy scanner that will pick up, you know, in every, like, you know, in the eardrums and everywhere else where they can stash drugs? I know it's a tough question, but I'm just thought we should ask.
You know, it's one of those questions, like I could sit here and say, well, yeah, you don't want drugs in the jail, but I'm also a realist. You know, when you're an addict, you'll do anything you can. And if you know you're being remanded through drug court, and they know it's coming, right, Mike?
Yeah.
And that's where I try to educate my staff. You have to look at the whole picture. If you know you have somebody remanded from court, from drug court, those are the people we need to pay special attention to. And we have
Why? Because they're going to be drinking.
Well, they know that they violated some term or condition, and that eventually they keep doing that. I mean, it's not like the first time they have a dirty drop that they're incarcerated, but the 5th time, 3rd time may very well get incarcerated. Mm-hmm. And they may not know the specific rule, but they've got a good idea of whether they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, we should explain what a dirty drop is.
Well, frequently when people are on probation for drug or alcohol abuse, they are tested randomly for drugs and alcohol. They come in and essentially give a urine sample, and that is then tested. So they usually know whether they've done something, and they know the time limits between how long something stays in your system. So they've got a pretty good idea whether they're going to test dirty or not. And they know that if they're on the edge already, that it's likely they're going to get a warrant's going to be issued.
The best advice we can give is don't drink coffee before you do the urine sample. That's what somebody was told. No, seriously, it can be dirty. You don't believe it. He doesn't believe it.
Over the years, we have heard a lot of don't eat this, don't drink that.
Or don't drink too much water because then they can tell it's diluted.
Yes. There's that is a common one. What was the muffins? Poppy seed muffins used to.
Oh, yes. Well, there's a drug in that, poppy seeds. That's where heroin comes from.
And it's amazing. They test positive for THC.
Naturally, that makes all the sense in the world. I just wanted to bring up, because we're kind of at the end here, but the JRAC, I wanted to say that both the sheriff and the prosecutor are on the local JRAC Council, Justice Reinvestment Advisory Council. It is the state arm of the Community Corrections Advisory Board. Mike is the chair of both of those. Sheriff is on it. What do they do at the state level? They do a lot of what we were just talking about. The Advisory Council on the state level is charged with conducting state-level reviews of local corrections programs, county jails, probation services, and the processes used by the Department of Correction and the Division of Mental Health and Addiction in awarding grants. So hopefully you're able to get your message through this JRAC too, which has been around for a few years now?
We did have the JRAC did do a letter, I think was it
a couple months ago?
No, in 23 to the governor about the jail overcrowding. And maybe it's time to do that again. I had the opportunity to sit down with the Senate Pro Tem a couple of weeks ago and talked about this issue quite a bit.
Who's that now?
Rod Bray from Martinsville.
Roderick Bray, yeah.
So I know that some people are aware of it. I don't know, Governor Braun being fairly new, if this has been really brought to his attention. I have to wonder about their allocation of resources. Feels like I get inundated, especially over the weekend, but I probably get at least 2, 3, 4 emails a day from DOC talking about either providing me with progress reports that I haven't asked for on, or other updates about time cuts that individuals are receiving, or changes in their out date. I suppose there's nothing wrong with that, but a progress report does take some effort to put together. And if we don't have enough administrative personnel to process people in, I guess I think that's a little more important than we know when they come out that we do have programs for them. But they all know what their out date is. That's one thing that they're pretty sharp.
Well, and maybe that department is more efficient than the first one, which is the intake. You don't know.
Sometimes it can also lead to at least the question of what is their priority, intaking or getting people out. And they do a lot of things that make you believe that it's probably the latter.
Get them out so they don't have to pay for them anymore. It's up to the county. All right, well, listen, we've got my right hand, we've got our prosecutor, and we've got our Sheriff Troy Hershberger. Does anybody want the last word before we sign off? Nobody?
Have at it,
Just
Troy.
say to Sheriff Hershberger, another great meeting full of explanation. I always learn something when I talk with you.
She really cares.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So we do. So, all right. Well, with that, I will do the sign off. This has been the Probable Cause podcast out of Allen County, Indiana. And you can find this podcast and other ones on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube, www.theprobablecause.com. Also our dedicated Facebook page, which is called The Probable Cause. Does anybody want to add anything else before we say goodbye? This episode is filmed and edited by Frosty Pictures. The Probable Cause is produced by Maumee Media.
Worried when I crossed the Michigan line, a cop from Steuben County waiting on I-69. A headlamp went out while he pulled me over, charged me with possession after I rolled down the window.
That's skunk.
Indians a trip when it comes to weed. It's like who doesn't smoke or use gummies? Your grandpa, your brother, your rich friend from school? Hell, throw in the whole courthouse and my attorney too. It's time those assholes change these stupid laws. It ain't worth the paper for a probable cause. Sitting on a bar stool in my usual place, this guy next to me said he was looking for some cocaine. Hell, I just sold him an 8-ball with a little piece off for me. But my buyer was a cop? Should've known he was a creep. So I'm a dealer, right? You gotta be kidding. It's a rich man's drug. I just take it because I'm injured. 8 years in Westville with a monkey on my back. There's more drugs in here than you can shake a shank at. One dirty drug test, man, this system's flawed. Undercover screwed me in my probable cause. Street crimes never did me no favors. I'm hooked on Fetty. I'm a junkie, not a felon. Told that son of a bitch on the way to lockup. I can't seem to shake it. I need help, not mocking. What do you want from someone who's been through the system? Drugs all through the house before mom and dad went to prison. Throw me in jail and give me a fine? Someday I'll be dead and away from your kind. Now I'm at the courthouse in front of a judge. Can't say my public defender cares for me much. Crimes are committed on both sides of the law. God help me now with this probable cause. C-shift never gets old. Anything can happen when you're out on patrol. You think I'm just eating donuts, man? Give me a break. Nothing on this job is a piece of cake. Lights and sirens activated. This knucklehead wants to chase. Baby mama at the scene just spit in my face. Wife's worried that someday I won't be pulling up at all. You'll read about my killer in a probable cause. Man. She went through my phone and she seen my text. I told her forget it. It was just my ex. She took a swing and knocked me flat. Man, I went wild and hit her back. Judge slapped me with a no contact order. Now she's got the kids and she's staying with her mother. So she started it all and I have to take the fall. You can read my whole story in the probable cause. When I was young, caught a case for dealing and did my time. Yeah, I got a record, but I was doing fine. Running my own business on the southeast side. Yeah, I got a gun. I kept it on hand. Told the cop my reason, thought he'd understand. In this neighborhood, you need some protection. Attorney thought I could get just community corrections, but the judge decided to send me to prison. Can't get ahead no matter how hard I try. Read the probable cause, it'll make you cry.
Whispers and rumors that don't get reported. Stories I write that are often distorted. Got my notebook and pen, and I'm ready to listen. Tell me the truth, I'll consider your position. I've seen killers with eyes so cold and dead, and others go to prison because of what someone said, rotting away for the rest of their lives, leaving a hole here on the outside. Things are sad here on earth, and it's no wonder why, when you consider the sociopaths who remain in charge. It's me who sees the system for all its flaws, and I usually start with the probable cause. My right hand is reading the probable cause.